Welcome to the webinar. You have entered as an attendee in listen-only mode.
Please, Kate Kaminer present.
Richard
Angela-
Hand.
Angela
Richard Hand
Bender, present.
Emily
Michael
Sisson,
present.
Eric Gaffin, present.
Mike DePietro, present.
Bob Wyden, present.
Rich Hand, present.
Emily, did I get you?
Emily Sisson, present. I stepped on somebody, I think.
All right.
You got them all, Jenna?
Yes.
Okay. We're happy to have with us tonight the architects let me pronounce it correctly, Activitas. Is that correct? Okay.
That's good.
They're here. Thank you. They're here to present a preliminary conceptual design of the Birch Meadow Master Park Plan. This has been an ongoing working committee for probably years. Recreation Committee member Richard Hand has been a longtime member of that master planning committee. Other members include Chuck Tyrone from the Conservation. He's the Conservation Administrator. Rich Hand, as I mentioned. Jenna Fiorente, who's the rec supervisor. Kevin Miller from Community Services. Ryan Percival, the town engineer. Tom Zayer, the athletic director. And Mike Wondolowski, who is the representative from Reading Little League. So the architects are going to present their concept and their design tonight. It'll be a 20-25 minute presentation. We ask that everyone hold their questions until the end of the presentation. During the presentation, if you do have questions, you're able to type those questions into the chat box, and the gentleman at the conclusion of their presentation will answer all of your questions. If you prefer not to write a question and you want to be recognized for a question, at the end of the presentation, just raise your hand and Jenna or myself will try and get it into an even flow. I think, we're going to try keep your questions, if you could, keep your questions to 1 or 2 each. We're going to try and do this all within an hour. And then after this presentation and after the questions, the Recreation Committee members, we will continue on with our regular committee business and handle approving minutes of previous meetings. So I'm sure the gentleman will be telling you that keep in mind a master park plan. It's a dynamic, long-term planning document. So it's a presentation tonight, and we'll go from there. So Jenna, I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks, Kate. I think you pretty much covered all of the key points there. So we will let Mark and Steve take over. We'll hide our webcams and we will see everybody at the end of the presentation. And thanks to everybody who made an effort to be here tonight. We really appreciate the feedback.
Thank you, Jenna. And thank you, Kate. My name is Mark Novak. I am a professional landscape architect with Activitas. With me tonight is Stephen Crisafulli, also a professional landscape architect with Activitas. We're an athletic and recreational design firm based out of Dedham. We've been working with the town of Reading on this Birch Meadow Park master plan now, going on about 9 to 10 months. And tonight is a really critical point in the master plan development process, as we get a chance to let you know what we've heard and how that's developed into a conceptual vision for potential future projects at Birch Meadow Park. So a few ground rules. as Kate mentioned, if you can, please wait till the end of the presentation to ask your questions. At that point, you can click on the hand, raise your hand for a question, and we'll go into that at the end of the presentation. I'll unmute you, and then you can ask your question verbally. If you have a question during the presentation, please use either the chat or the questions. Hopefully the audio has gotten a little bit better. I do have one attendee stating that they don't have audio, but according to my display, everything's working appropriately. When you do ask your questions, whether it's in the question bar or in the chat, please state your name and address, and that goes the same at the end of the presentation. Please state your name and address. Considering this is a public meeting, it needs to go into the record. This presentation is being recorded and will be available at a later date. So if you have any connectivity issues, don't worry. We're in different times right now. So don't worry about it. Just try to log back in. And if you miss anything, you can go take a look at either the tape presentation or you can ask a question at the end. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about master plan progression, what a master plan really is, how we developed our baseline understanding for the development of this conceptual framework, what we went through to analyze the existing site and develop a list of items that are needed at Birch Meadow, basically needed or could use enhancement. And then we'll take a look at the actual plan where it stands today. And keep in mind that this is preliminary. It's a kind of a fluid document at this point. So if there's comments, questions, or concerns that necessitate the adjustment of the plan, we're more than happy to make those. We'll go into our recommendations for potential future implementation, and then we'll have time at the end for question and answer.
Mark, time out. You're just on your desktop. I think it's a different screen.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
Bear with me for a second, everyone. And I'll get this over. Love COVID technical difficulties. Is that better, Steve?
Yeah.
Okay. Is this better?
Yeah. Okay.
So let me go back a step. What is the purpose of a master plan? In this case, it's a singular park. We often work for a number of municipalities and look at master plans that are system-wide for the entire park and recreation system. In this particular case, we're looking at a singular park, Birch Meadow. So here, we're trying to create a compelling vision and direction for recreation, school athletics, youth and community services at Birch Meadow Park. And really the goal is, in the end, to determine the right path to follow. So master plans, by nature, are an organizational framework that lists and lays out a path for enhancing site facilities and elements within the park. It provides a strategic plan for the vision and budgeting of phased improvements or recommendations for phased improvements out anywhere from 5 to 10 plus years. In this case, we're looking in the 10 plus year range. So our process here, we started with an inventory analysis and recommendations. So We looked at it, open space, items like circulation, both pedestrian and vehicular circulation in and around the site. Habitat and resource areas. There are some protected resource areas in Birch Meadow Park, as you all know, the Aberdeen River, Castine Field, and also where the Aberdeen River resurfaces over by Imagination Station parking lot and at the northern end of the track and field. We took into account user experiences, so not only athletic organizations and true competitive recreational use of the facility, but also passive recreation. Considering Higgins Conservation property across Birch Meadow Drive, that's largely a passive recreational element to the site. Once we take into consideration all the inventory and we look at a site analysis, we start to develop recommendations and the development of a roadmap or that framework that I was talking about earlier to help guide future decisions regarding park facilities. So by no means is this plan set in stone moving into the future. It's simply a framework that lays out options as funding becomes available, or options to help go solicit funding, and options for improvements and enhancements to individual facilities within the park. You don't want to get into a position where, say, an organization offers to donate money towards the renovation of an element within Birch Meadow Park. Everyone's excited, you move forward with it, and then you realize 2 years later that element is precluding you from doing something that you wish you could do now. So really, it's establishing this framework so you don't handcuff yourself in the future. Creating that needs prioritization and action plan as you move into the next decade. So what was our process here? Generally, we break it down in 3 ways. We asked, where have we been, where are we today, and where are we going? Where have we been? We did the initial site and facility review. Steve and I both were the landscape architects in charge of the renovation of Turf 2. So we've been on the Birch Meadow site for a number of years now. We started that back in late 2018. And we've seen how Birch Meadow is used on a day-to-day basis, not only by high school athletics, but by the greater Reading community. Working with Jenna in the Recreation Committee and Tom Zaya at the high school, we looked at a program assessment, how each of the facilities within the park are being used. We reviewed previous master plans and community surveys. There's been surveys done regarding Birch Meadow and potential future enhancements, done several times over the past 15 years. There was one in 2007, one in 2014, and one more recently in 2019. We took all the input from these surveys and added it towards our analysis. We spoke with a number of user groups. Then we started to prepare the master plan design. We also, which is a big component of this master plan, is we did a resource area delineation, specifically around the Aberdeen River and Castine Field. So we retained a wetland scientist to go out there and actually delineate the edges of the resource area or wetland at the Aberdeen and Castine Field, and those are now updated in our plan. Today, we're doing the community presentation, an extremely critical portion of the master planning process. It's our opportunity to get some feedback from the community and how they feel about Birch Meadow Park and what they would like to see designed for the future of Birch Meadow Park. And then where are we going? We'll take any input. Any and all input is good input. So we'll take that input and we'll continue to refine the master plan. And then we'll be presenting to the board, the select board, hopefully in December. Depending on how the rest of this evening goes. But the current plan is to present to the select board and conservation in December, and basically give the overview of our findings and why the plan that we've pulled together is as it is. So the site and facility review, in a second, I'm going to turn it over to Steve, and he's going to talk about site analysis. But the individual elements within Birch Meadow that we explored are, as you can see on this slide, the adventure courts, basketball and pickleball courts, basically being used on tennis, but a need for pickleball specific courts, all the way down to the top lot down along Bancroft Road. And with that, I'll turn it over to Steve to talk to you a little bit about our site analysis and what we found when we reviewed the existing conditions on site.
How's it going? So like Mark mentioned, we analyzed the site from being there for the last couple of years, and it allowed us to take a better and closer look at the existing conditions and opportunities and constraints of each facility within Birch Meadow. Some of the areas that we looked at: resource areas, circulation, entrance and access points, parking, existing inventory and conditions of athletic fields and courts, walking trails, topography, handicap accessibility, among other aspects. Next slide. So existing conditions, we looked at the resource areas, specifically Caffeine Field, shown flooded in the winter on the left, and the Imagination Station, the resource area next to the Imagination Station parking lot. Next slide. Basketball courts are visibly cracked and in disrepair, fencing in need of repair or replacement, which is seen site-wide, in addition to conflicting location with the adjacent uses of playground and Little League field. Field conditions are clearly overused and show signs of needing improved cultural maintenance practices. Fencing, as mentioned, with basketball courts. In this picture on the left, supports are on the inside of the field as opposed to the outside, which is the optimal layout. On the inside, it creates more of a conflict with foul balls. It is correct that the Little League field and also half of the site is black powder-coated fencing, half of it's galvanized, so a need for a standard of fencing throughout the site is what we're looking at. Lighting, existing lighting at the softball fields is not energy efficient. Light spill is an issue, and the proposed lighting to be matching with what we had at Turf 2 LED, which controls light spill a little better, and pedestrian lighting. Storage is another issue that came up a lot in our analysis. There's no set standard for storage, so teams and organizations are bringing their own toolboxes and sheds. The existing storage building on the left is in disrepair, so setting a standard for storage where organizations can rent out space and keep it organized rather than bringing their own would be preferred. Parking is another thing we looked at. Gravel lot over by the old navigation station is not ADA compliant. It needs more organization and should be redeveloped to address the stormwater concerns in this area. Additionally, parking throughout the site in different areas would provide greater opportunities for access. Handicap accessibility, most if not all of the site benches throughout the site are not accessible and ADA compliant, nor spectator seating. We're looking at any future renovations to be done that each of those elements are compliant with accessibility standards. And then finally, wayfinding signage varies heavily throughout the site. Colors, graphics, everything. Uniform signage would benefit the users, and it should be a standard for parks and recreation across the town.
All right, thanks, Steve. So after we performed our initial physical evaluation of the park, we sat down with a number of user groups and we did a number of what we call interviews and stakeholder group interviews. We met with town administration, Reading Public Works, obviously public schools, community services, recreation, and then a number of athletic organizations from soccer to lacrosse to Little League, softball, Babe Ruth, and also high school athletics. A common theme for strengths, with all these groups, we perform what we call a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Generally, everyone agreed that strengths of the existing Birch Meadow Park, are its central location in town, the stadium, the track and field, or turf one, the proximity to surrounding schools, and the existing tennis courts, which were recently renovated. Challenges, everything from drainage to limited use of castine because of the hydraulic nature of the soils, inadequate storage, older field lighting, parking. When the park is heavily being used, parking is an issue out there. There's a lack of formal entrances on site or gateways. And as Steve mentioned, wayfinding was an issue. Trails or walkways in and around Higgins Conservation Area need some enhancement. And then generally circulation or passive recreation through the park into the adjacent neighborhoods was addressed as a need. The four most common requests when we asked people what they envisioned for an immediate need at Birch Meadow Park was more field lighting and more pedestrian level lighting, more passive recreation opportunities, so more walkways in and around the park, a restrooms and concession building somewhere central in the park in order to support all the organizations from a concession standpoint, and then more turf. Knowing that we have turf at the stadium and then the recently renovated turf too, the use of the implementation of additional turf at Birch Meadow was seen as a need in order to increase programming and address challenges with cultural maintenance practices on the natural grass fields. Some of the other items that were called out as a need was a lacrosse ball, obviously storage, pickleball specific courts, general themes like making the park more inviting and landscaping, more defined team areas specifically at softball, better maintenance or the cultural maintenance practices to help the natural grass surfaces withstand the excessive amount of use that is currently placed on the fields, and then scoreboards and PA systems and minor modern technology enhancements on site. So with that, we started and developed the general master plan. So the conceptual site plan, again, the framework for potential future projects. By no means is this happening tomorrow. This isn't written in stone. Any element within this plan may be decided by the town to have it listed as a capital in the capital improvement plan as a potential project. And then that specific project will need to go through its own design, permitting, regulatory approval process before it can ever be constructed. And the funding associated with that project would also need to be approved. So this, again, is just a roadmap. It's just outlining possibilities for what could be done to further enhance the user experience at Birch Meadow in the future. And I understand that this is probably a little tough to read on your screen because it's zoomed out so far, but the next few slides are really just showing how, from a design standpoint, we set up the layout of the site. So first we looked at circulation in and around the site. We mentioned that there were challenges with circulation. That was acknowledged in the surveys. It was acknowledged by our user group interviews. So we looked at two strong connection points, one running between Castine and Softball all the way down to the high school parking lot and the Rise parking lot, and the other one running from Birch Meadow Drive along the edge, the eastern edge of the softball fields at Imagination Station, down in between the stadium and Turf 2. These two primary circulation cut-throughs, we'll call them, kind of set the design framework for the layout of the rest of the master plan at Birch Meadow. Within those areas, we looked at secondary circulation walks, and you can see the lighter orange lines running all the way around the outside of the site and in between the individual facilities themselves. We also took a look at, knowing that the park is heavily used by walkers and runners, and even the track is used by walk and runners, what it would be like to develop a circulation system that could be metered. So if you're going out for exercise, more often than not, people are looking to track how far they've traveled. If you don't have a watch or a phone that's tracking your distance, this is a metered walk all the way around and through Birch Meadow Park that totals approximately 1 mile. We looked at parking. So parking was listed as a challenge when the site is heavily programmed. We looked at adding some parking lots at the outside of Birch Meadow Drive and Birch Meadow Park to create basically a 3 to 5 minute walk from any of the parking areas to any of the facilities within the park. We also looked at a lighting plan, both sports lighting to increase programmability on your athletic fields, but also pedestrian level lighting and parking lot lighting to enhance safety within the park. Now, zooming in a little bit on each of the elements within the proposed conceptual plan, we'll move from north to south. So starting up behind Coolidge Middle School, we're proposing renovating that field in synthetic turf. To increase utility of that field, we're also expanding it to support lacrosse, multi-purpose uses, and softball. This field will be lit, is proposed to be lit, and we're adding storage compartments at one end, the western end of the field. All of the facilities that we're proposing will have sports lighting technology as an element that could be phased as part of the project to increase programmability and utility of the facility. Down south of Coolidge Middle School is the Imagination Station parking lot. Currently, it's an unstructured gravel parking area with storm water that drains overland into the river. That really needs to be cleaned up and formalized. So in this portion of the site, we're looking at adding a parking lot off the road that gets paved, has appropriate stormwater measures for collection, oil water separators, so that we're discharging clean water instead of having water that just runs over and is taking contaminant and erosion sediment with it. You can see that the Aberjona in between Imagination Station parking lot and the northern end of the track, that's obviously a resource area that has wetland buffers and riverfront buffers associated with it. So any work in this area would require regulatory approvals from conservation. So if this wasn't identified as a project that the town would like to proceed with soon, that would obviously need to go in front of the applicable boards in order to get that work accomplished. South of the parking lot is basically a gateway into Birch Meadow Park. It's a landscape element where we can add some more planting and create some more opportunities for passive recreation. In the heart of Birch Meadow, obviously Turf 1 in the track and field stadium, that is due for a renovation. The turf is at the end of its useful life, as is the track surfacing at the stadium. So that is something that needs to probably be looked at sooner rather than later. And it's my understanding that that's something the town is interested in looking into further. Obviously, Turf 2 was recently renovated, and that does not require any other work at the moment. We are looking at a large multi-purpose synthetic turf softball complex. I think the benefit in this is it starts to separate the softball fields from each other, so that girls softball for the high school and younger ages can be played simultaneously with men's softball. Currently, with 3 softball fields in the area, the overlap just does not make it a safe condition for multiple games to be played at once. In this situation, you could do that. As you can see, coming off of Birch Meadow Drive is that main spine, that circulation spine that runs down between Castine, the softball multipurpose field, down through the middle of the site to the support structure, if you will, a building that can be used for concessions, restrooms, and storage. Castine, as I mentioned earlier, we have that delineated for wetlands, and the entire Castine field is technically a resource area. So the master plan does not contemplate at this time doing anything other than wetland enhancement for portions of Castine. Very similarly, over at the northern end of the track and field stadium, we are also proposing some wetland enhancements for the Aberjona River, where it comes back out of the culverted area in the heart of the park. The wetland enhancements at both Castine and Imagination Station, I think, could be tremendous educational opportunities, especially considering their proximity to the Higgins Conservation Area and to the high school. Moving further south, Morton Field. We're proposing some relatively minor enhancements to Morton Field. The condition of the natural grass surface is in good shape. It is meticulously maintained by baseball organizations. And we're really proposing just some enhancements to the circulation around the back for spectators, some improvements to the team areas over time and spectator seating, and also the addition of a sports lighting system so that the utility of Morton Field could be increased. Understanding Morton Field's proximity to some of the abutting neighborhoods, we've also beefed up the vegetation around the outside of the field, knowing that we have an arm, a stream that connects down to the Aberjona. We are proposing a series or a fairly robust planting area in between Morton Field and that stream. Again, adding some storage areas for Morton Field, and then also relocating or reconstructing the batting cages. So in both the softball field, now they will have their own dedicated batting cages, and Morton Field will have its own dedicated batting cages. That is something that, you know, we fully understand there's some sensitivity involved with the existing batting cages that are located up beyond right field. They are new. There is a dedication on those. So if in the future this is decided to be a project that the town wants to pursue, we fully recommend that the batting cages, whatever materials can be reused, and it also gets rededicated in its new location. Sorry, back up in the middle of the site, I failed to mention the parking lots off of Birch Meadow Drive. Again, as I discussed earlier, our goal is to create a 3 to 5 minute walk from parking lots to all aspects of the facility, and then general improvements to the trails and wayfinding signage over at the Higgins Conservation Area. Finally, at the bottom of the site, we're looking at improving the tot lot area along Bancroft with landscaping, fencing, new surfacing, new playground equipment, and importantly, fencing, not right on the playground area, but more on the perimeter of the area to make sure that we're preventing any safety or addressing any safety concerns regarding the proximity of the playground to Bancroft. We originally looked at moving the playground closer to the Little League field, but that presents its own challenges with foul balls. We have a bank of pickleball specific tennis courts, pickleball courts, excuse me, 8 of them. All of those will be lit, not necessarily with sports light, tall Musco sports lighting, but smaller, what they call LSI courtsiders. At least that's our recommendation. We're recommending a small expansion to the Rise parking lot, and then the relocation of basketball over into the general flat natural grass area near the parking lot associated with Hawks Fieldhouse. Basketball courts are oriented in the proper north-south direction, and now we have some physical separation. Knowing how pickup basketball works, we wanted to have some physical separation between the basketball courts in areas like the tot lot and the Little League field where small children are often congregating. The last element here is the ropes course. There's nothing graphically shown here, but that has also been identified as a needed recommendation for enhancement and improvements. It's reaching the end of its useful life. So just a quick summary of features. This chart basically tells what we have existing and what we have proposed. So currently we have 2 existing synthetic turf fields and 4 proposed, and 4 natural grass fields and 2 proposed. So it looks like we're taking away a lot of natural grass fields and a lot of utility from the Birch Meadow. But when you add a synthetic turf field, you're in effect gaining 3 natural grass fields. So really what you're doing is by adding additional infilled or traditional synthetic turf to your program, you're dramatically and significantly increasing the utility on your site. And as we go down, you can see that all the elements are realizing some kind of improvement from the existing to the proposed, or at least maintaining the condition that is currently out there. This slide just highlights, if you go back to the earlier slide in the presentation with the top 4 elements that the community is looking for at Birch Meadow. If you recall, lighting.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Oh, Siri jumped on me. Lighting, passive recreation walkways. So we're getting that in the measured walking path and the parkway gateway entrances. The support structure in the restroom and concessions, don't have that now, but we're proposing it in the plan. Sports lighting for all of the fields, and obviously pedestrian level lighting for all of your inner park walkways and pathways, and then additional synthetic turf. So again, understanding that this is a framework and just a recommendation for a future vision for Birch Meadow, it's not something that would happen overnight. It needs to be phased. And how do you look at phasing for a park of this size? So what would we recommend goes first, and what would we recommend goes last in terms of development or renovation projects? And we break that down into a three-tiered system or buckets. So bucket number one is what we call the critical bucket. These are projects that address safety and maintenance concerns on site. These projects should be done sooner rather than later. We call these the short-term projects. Bucket number two is the sustainable bucket. These are buckets that help enhance the park in moderate ways. So strategic changes to your park facilities and elements. These are your midterm projects. And then finally, bucket number three, the visionary. The visionary bucket are the projects that provide a transformational change to the way Birch Meadow can be used. They are more often than not the most costly projects associated with a master plan. But again, they are the ones that provide a significant and transformational change to your park facility. So the way we're looking at it right now, we see the critical projects being as follows. Looking at the central spine walkway extending from Birch Meadow Drive down between Castine through the middle of the site, and then connecting over at the high school. If you look at the chart in the upper left-hand corner, we list the projects, then provide dollar signs for cost in the way TripAdvisor might do. But generally speaking, it runs from $1 signs to $5 signs, one obviously being the lowest cost, $5 signs being the highest cost. Can the projects be phased? So if we want to do some kind of a capital improvement project, say the central spine walkway, can we break off pieces of that walkway and only do a portion of it this year, maybe a portion of it next year, or a portion of it 3 years from now? So in the case of the central spine walkway and restrooms, yes, it is feasible. The second one is lacrosse ball. That is one of the lower cost items. It's not feasible because it's such a small element, but it is something that can be done soon because it has the potential for outside funding, and it's something that provides an immediate impact and doesn't displace any other elements on site. The Imagination Station parking lot is something that we see as a critical need, including the wetland enhancement in between the parking lot area and the track. And then finally, as we discussed earlier, the renovation of the surfacing within the stadium at the high school. Sustainable projects or our midterm projects in the master plan are as follows, and it's largely on the western end of the site and the southern end of the site. So it's everything from the improvements to the conservation area, Birch Meadow Drive parking areas, Castine Field and Aberjourner River wetland restoration and enhancement, improvements over at Morton Field, the adventure and ropes course in between Turf 2 and the tennis courts up on the hill, the addition of new basketball courts, improvements to the existing Liberty Field, much like Morton. The Liberty Field is in very good shape, just needs some minor improvements, including storage and some better structured team areas. The pickleball specific courts, the playground, and then the addition of the Rise parking lot. Generally, all these projects can be phased, in our opinion, with the exception of the parking lot. If you're going to do it, you're going to do it. The playground, same thing, ropes course, and then the restoration of casting wetland resource areas. Finally, visionary. The big transformational projects in it. In this plan, it's really the additional synthetic turf on site. Adding these fields helps you separate the softball fields, helps you get more utility in those portions of the site. And yes, they are largely the most expensive capital improvement projects that you would be looking at. However, they could be phased. So there are portions of these projects that you could strip out and do first, specifically lighting, or you could do the fields and then do lighting later. And there's a number of other advantages that these fields present to the town for future consideration. Specifically, the base of synthetic turf fields is generally a large detention area. You put storage chambers under these fields and it can help address known stormwater challenges downstream. Both of these projects also have the potential for outside funding resources. So how do the critical sustainable and visionary projects, the way we see them break down, apply to our original wants and needs list and key focus areas? So really, with the critical projects, we're attacking 3 of the top 4 elements, and even some of the other elements, specifically the lacrosse wall, making the park more inviting by creating that landscaped passive recreational area south of Imagination Station parking lot, and then better maintenance plan by the town or others. That's something that we put in all of our park master plans, is a cultural maintenance plan to help either the town or an outside contractor provide more, and or it's basically another framework for providing better practices to get more out of your natural grass surfaces. The orange areas are sustainable projects, so they continue to address some of the largely reoccurring subjects that came up in our interviews and the surveys. And then finally, the visionary subject of adding more turf. That is potentially a long-term proposition, but it is something that is worth merit of consideration as Reading moves into the future and continues to look at potential enhancements to the Birch Meadow. So with that, I thank you for our time. We've gone a little bit over. We're at 7:49. We're entering into the question and answer portion of the evening. On your GoToWebinar control panel, there is a hand symbol. If you want to click your hand symbol, we'll do our best to unmute you and you can ask your question, if you have one. So, Jonathan, can you hear me?
Hello, Jonathan Weber, 84 Hartshorn Street. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
How are you? Excellent.
Good.
My concern is around parking and traffic. By the looks of the overall master plan, it looks like you're going to make a major change to the end of Birch Meadow Drive at the end of Castine Field. Is that going to impact overall traffic? Are you looking for that to be just a parking lot down there and take away the roadway? Or is the traffic going to continue through there
Traffic
to
will,
John Carver?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jonathan. Thank you. Traffic will continue through there. It's basically head-in parking that we're using as basically a trailhead parking area for the Higgins Conservation Area. And providing some parking. It's fairly limited. It's under 10 spaces. So it's safer in terms of parking than doing parallel parking over there. And it also provides an opportunity to address some of the lack of accessible parking spaces over in that area. But traffic will continue through that area.
Okay, I understand that. I just think that you're going to run into an issue with, if you've got head-in parking at the, I guess it would be west end of Castine Field, the way the traffic flows through there right now, it's going to be very dangerous coming out of John Carver and going past parking spots where people may be reversing out into the street. One other opportunity, and I don't know if it's been addressed, but to the south of Castine Field, I believe it's to the south, there is an open lot that I think is owned by the town, just below, on the picture, just below the river.
Yeah.
That may be able to give you a walking path over to the baseball field at Morton to give more access there. Has that been reviewed with possible bridge over the water?
We have looked at that area, Jonathan, and I'm glad you brought it up. However, during our working group meetings, it was identified an area that's under conservation restrictions. At least that's what we were informed by the conservation agent, Chuck Jerome. And the Conservation Commission has actually provided us with that information. So we had a parking lot in there originally, a small one, for closer access over to Morton Field, but we had to remove it due to the restriction on the property.
Okay, thank you very much for answering my questions. I think your biggest challenge here is going to be traffic flow in and out. Right now, we've got parking situations in the neighborhoods, and it's flowing up into the neighborhoods, of which my house is one of the ones that's in the picture here. And I think that's an overall concern, that we get people down into the area, and it's going to be tough to be getting them out in between games and having folks parking up along, for instance, Hartshorn Street, Bancroft. It's going to be very difficult to deal with some of the traffic. I do like the turnaround that was put in down at the end of Bancroft. I think that's a very smart move. The big concern moving forward with that is that will become a spot for people to sit in their cars and watch the baseball game. So overall, great job. I love the look of all the changes and appreciate your time and effort and all the effort that's been put in by the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Appreciate it. All right, we'll move on to our next question. Let's go, Annika. I am giving you access. Annika,
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for taking my question. Anika Scanlon, I'm at 3 Copeland Ave in Reading. I've been a member, full disclosure, I've been a member of the Conservation Commission for a number of years now. So thank you for having this. It's been pretty interesting, and I appreciate your attention to the resource areas. There were just a couple of things I wanted to point out. One thing, and I found this out by reading a previous master plan. One thing I just wanted to mention was that the Higgins Conservation Area apparently is under a restricted land use conservation covenant. I don't remember coming across that in my time on conservation, but kind of to the previous caller's question or comment about parking in that Birch Meadow Drive area, I do understand, parking is already fairly congested there during a lot of a lot of very active game play days. I
Mhm.
mean, I've been down there myself with my kids. I get it. And I know there's the need. I just wanted to mention that it seems like there is a conservation covenant on the Higgins Conservation Area. So, if you want to propose some parking that encroaches into that land, we're going to have to look at that conservation covenant a little bit more carefully to see if it's allowed. I wanted to also just add for people's information, the purpose of that small lot, our administrator was correct. The purpose of that small lot south of, just before you get into the Castine Field area from the residential road,
Yeah.
the purpose of that small forested lot is it was a compensation arrangement. It was some mitigation that was provided to the town conservation commission because of some of the development that happened during the high school process. So when the high school was rebuilt, there were agreements with conservation at that time, and that field remaining vegetated was part of those agreements made at that time. So I just wanted to let people know about that.
Great.
And just one other question. I saw that I saw the stakeholders who were asked to participate. I just wanted to encourage you to consider expanding that out to perhaps the YMCA, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, neighborhood groups. And those are just a couple I can think of off the top of my head. So.
Yeah, and we did approach the YMCA, and they didn't respond. I think that could be one of the challenges that we face. Unfortunately, when we did a lot of our outreach to different organizations was kind of during the heat of COVID in the spring. But we can certainly reach back out to them, and I thank you for your comments.
All right, there's just one last thing, if I can, I'll be brief. I do understand the town's need and the desire for additional artificial turf. From an environmental perspective, those turf materials can contain some undesirable constituents that are not necessarily healthy for the environment. So I just raised that as a private citizen, not necessarily as a member of the Conservation Commission. But the attributes of crumb rubber are not the healthiest. And I think that's intuitively known. I think you could sort of say, well, yeah, it's ground up tires.
Alternative infill options that, should one of those projects be brought forward as a potential real project, then at that time, everything would need to be explored in terms of alternate infills, what the challenges that the community feels synthetic turf presents in terms of chemicals. But having said that, I'm by no means a salesman for synthetic turf, but we've done them in multiple communities across New England. Same questions come up, and we've gone all the way up the ranks of DEP, and they found that they present no significant risk to the environment or human health and safety. But I understand your concerns, and if that became a potential project in the future, that's something that the consultant would obviously address with you as a citizen and you as a conservation member.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, let's see if we got anyone else. Dave Reed. I'm unmuting you. Dave, are you with us?
I am with you guys. Thank you. Thank you for what you've done. Couple quick questions since we're almost out of time, if not out of time. The parking lot by Birch Meadow that's across the street, does that encroach on any of the playground area or the field that they currently have? The school just built out mobile classrooms. They just lost the area to play on. I would just hate for the elementary students to lose even more of their play area, even though it is wooded and it's not necessarily formal play structure. Just be bad to see that. The other thing is that small, I don't know if you call it triangle by the Imagination Station, rest in peace.
Yes.
Can anything be done with that area to make it, I don't know what you could do with that, given the size of this aerial photo, but just to make that functional, if there's anything that can be done. I mean, like, if we have a lacrosse wall, can it be another lacrosse wall, since that doesn't take up much room? So if you guys put any thought into that. Last but not least, and I don't know if this is part of your scope, but the softball field, the varsity softball field, the men's field has really nice dugouts and a very nice structure. The women's softball field has a fence that goes to a light pole. I mean, it's almost embarrassing. And I don't have a horse in this race. I don't have a daughter playing softball, but it would be nice to show something for the female softball team to have dugouts or something by their field. And that could be in this aerial photo, but it's like the size of an ant. So I don't know if that's part of it.
Yeah, no, great points, Dave. Thank you very much. The softball team areas, we are proposing brand new softball team areas, brand new backstops, brand new fencing. We're very sensitive to Title IX and gender equity issues when we're looking at planning athletic and recreational facilities. So that's something that most definitely would need to be addressed. And a great comment on the area over at Imagination Station. I'm not sure that another lacrosse ball on site is something that would rank out higher than potentially another playground. Just for a park of this size when compared to other communities.
Sure, I don't know what you could put there. I can't figure out the scale, but I don't think 2 lacrosse balls would work. But just something to make it somewhat functional over there, but whatever, not paid either.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I think, we were trying to keep a little bit of a ribbon of more passive, open, landscaped area rather than I don't want to say over programming, but trying to program every square foot of the site. But that's a great comment, and we'll take a closer look at it. Thank you.
And I know we're over, but the parking lot by Birch Meadow, is that taken away from the playground area or the wooded area, or is that just taking
it does dive into the wooded area a little bit, and I know that the grade does go up over there, but our design was actually calling for a retaining wall to minimize the impact on the existing site over there, so it would not.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right, we'll take a few more questions. Jeff Mullen, unmute Jeff.
Good evening. I can hear me.
I can hear you, Jeff. Good evening.
I'm Jeff Mullen. I'm at 99 Charles Street. I'm involved with both Reading Youth Soccer and Reading Men's Softball. I have a couple questions about Coolidge. Could Coolidge still be used as a soccer field in some capacity, even though it's kind of transitioning in this proposal to a softball and, if I heard right, lacrosse? Could it be used in some capacity for soccer?
100%. Yes.
Good.
Yep. It would be a completely multi-purpose surface.
Okay. Because currently is there now, and I know that we appreciate it. A couple other quick questions, if I could. There are 3 external storage units located near the end of the Coolidge parking lot. Would those be affected by these proposed changes? I might have missed that in your bullet points if you already mentioned it.
Most likely, yes, Jeff. Obviously at the master plan and conceptual level, you don't get into the micro detail. This is a planning exercise at the macro level. But we did include, I believe, 4 additional storage structures at the eastern end of the site, or the eastern end of the field. And then those are really just placeholders. So, if that were to become a true potential project with the town, all of those elements we would look at citing those in a reasonable and functional manner.
Moving over toward softball quick questions. Hopefully you got to approach the Reading Men's Softball League as part of your interviews. I didn't see them listed. I would encourage you to do so if you get a chance.
I know that the recreation director, Jenna, has been in regular contact with them, and their input is definitely been considered in the generation of the plan.
Okay. And I want to continue talking about softball for a second. The enhancements that you were talking about, I think, with the for the girls for the softball fields with the dugouts. I don't know if you've gotten a chance to look at the other end of town. Sturgis Park has a softball field, and there was some enhancements made. I think led by, I could be wrong, led by the Reading Softball Little League organization. Get a chance to take a look at that. I think that might be a good template to see to give the girls softball better dugouts, things like that.
Great.
And then one more, I guess, general question. Do you have any kind of short or long-term maintenance cost expectations as we move, or if we move from natural grass to turf? You know, obviously, they have different maintenance needs and costs. So is that something that can be explored or answered at this time?
Yes, you're absolutely right. There are different maintenance needs for synthetic turf than for natural grass. Obviously, natural grass requires a lot more care specifically, but it all depends on the nature of the original construction of the natural grass field and the amount of use placed on that field. Synthetic turf by no means is maintenance free. A lot of people will claim that, you know, you just build it and you forget it until it's time to replace the carpet. If you want that carpet to last, you need to maintain it, and you need to maintain it on a regular basis. So we have not gotten to the point in this study where we've generated our maintenance recommendations. We're more looking for feedback on the proposed framework that we've discussed tonight. But I take your comment and we'll take it to heart, and those recommendations will be forthcoming.
Thank you. That's all I had. I appreciate the time, and I think you guys did an excellent job planning this out.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll do one more. I know that there's a number of people with their hands up, but we are out of time. Unless, Jenna, do you want to, or Kate, do we want to extend it a little bit longer?
I'm okay with a few more questions, maybe till about 8:15, and then we'll wrap it up. And if anybody does have additional questions, they can email me directly, and I can circle in with you.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
I promise to everyone, I'm taking these questions in no particular order. So we'll go to Marlena now. You're unmuted, Marlena. Can you hear me?
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I had the same question as someone else though about wetland enhancements and what that means. And it sounds like it means adding in some more existing natural grasses and things. And would our own conservation committee just handle that?
Your own conservation commission would be the, we'll call it the regulatory or approving authority for that enhancement design. So again, should that become a capital improvement project that the town would like to move forward with, the consultant would generate a plan in association with and discussions with both the conservation agent and conservation commission. And an NOI would most certainly need to be filed. Erosion.
A what? An NOI?
And You are correct, though. It would largely be vegetation enhancements.
And also, if you don't, can I ask another question about the 3 surveys since 2008 that went out to residents? Were the participatory residents re-engaged with the future ones and revisited to see if they felt the same way 5, 10 years later?
Yeah, so the last survey that was actually performed was performed in 2019, right before we were retained.
Right.
So, based on discussions with our working group, the information received in the 2019 aligned with the information received back in 2007 and 2014. So the needs that the respondents to the survey outlined were vastly similar. And that's why the 2019 survey responses were used in our analysis for recommended enhancement and improvements to the park.
But do you know if it was the same residents or not?
That I do not know. I'm sorry.
Okay. I guess that's it. And then I guess I just don't understand how we go from 3 fields down to 2, but in one of the descriptions, it sounds like due to lighting, we actually gain fields.
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I failed to describe that appropriately.
We definitely have a growing softball program in town.
Yeah. So you're not going from 3 softball fields to 2. You're going to have in the plan you have 3 softball fields. You have 2 at the multi-purpose field, the softball multi-purpose field in between Imagination Station and Castine, and then your third one is proposed at on the synthetic turf field up behind Coolidge. So you have
behind Coolidge.
Yeah, you have 3 softball fields currently, and you'll have 3 in the proposed plan. I think the proposed plan provides benefits because they are lit, so you can increase use on the fields, especially in the shoulder seasons. Softball season in the spring, you can get out there and play on it later. Also, with it being synthetic turf, again, softball is played in the spring when largely, soil conditions aren't really beneficial to softball use. So with synthetic turf, you're looking at a better playing surface, especially in the early softball season. And then finally, the separation of the fields. So right now they're overlapping, and you can't really have games being played simultaneously in a safe manner. So at this point, recreation will not permit the field simultaneously because of that safety concern. In the proposed plan, you could have 3 softball games being played at the same time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bear with me one moment. Moving on. Let's go with Patrick Harding. You're unmuted, Patrick. You with us, Patrick? I can see your mute is off, but we're not picking up any audio. No. I'm sorry, Patrick, we're going to move on. Let's go with Pete Mascarello. I'm sorry if I butchered your last name. Pete, you're off mute. Pete, you with us?
Are you hearing me okay now?
Now I got you, Pete. Great.
Thank you. Pete Moscarella, 15 Woodward Ave. I want to thank you for the presentation. Thank all the committees who've been involved. I'm very excited about this because For 60 years, Birch Meadow's been my home. I went to school, played or coached on every single building and facility and field that's in your diagram. So it's exciting to see these enhancements. So thank you for that. Question about the baseball field, Morton Field. It's Pete Moscarella Ballpark, home of Newt Morton Field. Was synthetically turfing that field ever part of the consideration of plan? And then I have a question about the batting cage, but was synthetic turf ever considered for that field?
We did. We did look at synthetic turf at the field. We just looking at the facility in its entirety, it was quite obvious that the baseball field has the highest quality natural grass surface. And I played baseball in high school. I'm a bit of a traditionalist. I like playing on natural grass, the smell of the grass, being able to get dirty in the infield mix. However, from a standpoint of developing a plan that's fiscally responsible, we didn't want to add synthetic turf everywhere. Mm-hmm. And if the baseball field was going to be synthetic turf, it really would have needed to be kind of re-envisioned into a multi-purpose.
Multi-purpose, sure.
To get the
kind of integrity of it, I get that.
Yeah.
It's meticulously maintained by the town of Reading, but particularly by Reading Babe Ruth Baseball and the gentlemen and women who maintain that do a professional job. And it's been a ton of time to do that. And it's beautiful because of all the maintenance is put in by private individuals. My other question about the batting cage, where it's located now, is convenient for non-high school players. Little league teams who are playing over the Majors Field next to tennis court might come over and use that. Softball players is the same thing. But when it's relocated down close to the foul territory on the high school field, it's going to be difficult for those little league groups to be using that when a high school game's going on, because it's going to impose upon the high school sounds and space. The history of it, the batting cage was first built in 1990, and we proposed to have it where your current proposal is now, and that was rejected because of a neighbor concern. And then we tried to put it in the left field line, which was your alternate plan, and that was rejected by neighbor concern too. And that's why it ended up where it is now. So where it is now is just accessible to high school softball, little league, and the other locations may be less accessible to those youth groups. And I know there's concession and all that, there's other factors there, but those are my comments. But overall, I'm just pleased to see all these enhancements for a guy who's been at Birch Meadow Field for over 60 years and continuing to use them. So thank you, everybody.
Yeah, Pete, thank you for your comments. That's a great point about the proximity of the cages to uses other than baseball where they currently sit. Uses other than high school baseball, specifically Little League. One thing to note, with some very minor plan modifications, the cages could remain in their existing location without really impacting the overall concept of the conceptual plan. So we'll take a closer look at that, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, I think we can start wrapping up the questions.
Want to do one more, or are we all done?
Oh, we'll do one more, sure. One
all
more.
Right. Vanessa, you win. And then thank you, everyone else. I'm sorry we couldn't get to your questions tonight. But please feel free to send them in. Jenna, should they please repeat how they should where they get questions or comments here?
I'm sorry, you broke up a little there.
Could you just please repeat for the people that didn't get their questions or comments out? Can you just please repeat how you want them to submit them?
Sure. They can email me directly. I can give them chat section, correct?
Yep.
And put my email in.
Sure.
And anybody who has a question, I could answer it or relay it to you for you to answer.
Great. Thank you very
Thank
much. Vanessa, close us out strong.
Thanks very much. First, I'd just like to thank you for a great presentation. Appreciate all the work you've done coordinating so many different voices here. I did have one question and then just a couple comments. You made reference to outside funding. Can you clarify what that means?
So outside funding is generally anything other than a capital improvement project through the town. So it could be youth organization, youth lacrosse wants to raise money through, a car washing drive to help pay for the lacrosse ball. So there's opportunities for outside funding like that. Grants, securing grants for certain things, that would be considered outside funding. Anything other than a CIP project.
Okay, great, thanks. And then as far as feedback goes, I would love to see some plan, especially in regards to parking for electric vehicle charging stations, solar panels for lighting or other electrical options. I realize that might be a little bit down the line, but the select board as it stands now is very much interested in sustainability efforts. So would love to see that.
I love it. I think that's a fabulous recommendation that should be added to the plan.
Wonderful, thank you. And the last thing is, because I know you've made mention about the conservation lands that we have surrounding this area, I would just want to make sure that the Conservation Commission specifically is actively involved in whatever proposals end up getting sort of further fleshed out, because it would be unfortunate to see a proposal come forward that then isn't feasible. So would love to make sure we address that in advance. Don't want to get people's hopes up and then not be able to follow through with something.
We agree. And I think it's important to mention that, Chuck, the conservation agent, Chuck Dorone, has been involved with the working group since this study's inception. Martha Moore, one of the conservation commissioners, has attended at least 2, if not more, of our working group sessions. So there has been involvement with the Conservation Commission, and really they've had a positive impact on some of the design considerations that we've made to date. And then finally, we talked about it earlier, but any of these project elements, once implementation is even considered, then they would need to go in front of all the necessary regulatory boards in order to flush things out. All of these proposed developments are staying outside of the 35-foot no disturb on the wetland resource areas. So, could there be challenges in the implementation and conditions put forth on any potential project by the Conservation Commission? Absolutely. But in terms of potential for these projects, I think we're definitely fleshing them out with Chuck and also Martha's input.
Wonderful. Thank you so much again. I realized I didn't know if I introduced myself, Vanessa Alvarado, Select Board. Thank you all very much and for letting me ask the questions.
Yeah, no, thank you, Vanessa. Pleasure to meet you virtually. Well, with that, thank you very much, everyone. It's been a pleasure speaking with you all tonight. Some fantastic comments from the community. We're here to really kind of translate your visions, your collective vision for Birch Meadow into, something graphic, something that framework that can take Birch Meadow to the next plus years. And we're going to continue working hard for you guys to develop something that everyone feels very strongly about and loves the potential about the future of Birch Meadow moving into the years to come. Thanks again, and we look forward to speaking with you guys again in the future. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Mark and Steve. Really appreciate that. This is Jenna, the rec administrator right now. So I just want to let anybody know who's still on the call that if they do not want to email me, they could also call the office. And also, if they wanted to publicly get their voice heard, they can come to the select board meeting. I think tentatively we're on the schedule for December 8th for that. So just keep an eye out, and I can certainly send out any communication on the website and through our email blast on the rec system to anybody who might be interested in joining a future meeting. And then now we'll just go into the rest of our rec meeting. So Kate, you want to take over? We can turn our webcams on now too if you want.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Mark. Well done.
Yes, Steve, you guys, Mark, awesome job. Very, very, very comprehensive. You did an awesome job answering the questions. Well thought out, and I commend you guys for talking to all the organizations and all the key stakeholders, because I know that was a lot of work.
No, appreciate it, Rich. I think it's been a team effort. Everybody is definitely great. It was great, the input from Dean and Bob. And, on our previous presentation, we made those adjustments, and things are starting to come together. We're hopefully on the home stretch. Definitely some good comments tonight that we need to take a look at in a little bit more detail. Felt like I said framework 4,000 times tonight, but I think the framework is right. Now it's just refining something.
And if I look at the comments in the chat section, I would say overwhelming, a lot of them positive, and even the questions that came from the community was relatively positive. And you were saying great comments, great input.
Excellent.
And we got to thank Jenna too for helping pull this together and hiring you guys. So that was awesome. And Jenna, thank you for all your time putting into this project as well, because I know you've been working late days and late nights pulling this together and meeting with everybody. So thank you for your effort there.
Yeah, I mean, I feel really fortunate to have the support of the Recreation Committee throughout the past, 5+ years. I've been in charge of the committee, and the working group has been phenomenal this past year. And Steve and Mark, I couldn't ask for more professional and good people, and just people who they really understand that these guys are the real deal. They're around the whole entire country, so we're probably just like a little blip on the map, and just the way that they really take the time to listen and just understand the concept of every single project they're doing is phenomenal. I mean, everything Mark and Steve were saying, I was like, oh my God, that's exactly what I would say about this conceptual design. And I feel like maybe all of us being involved for so long can also agree on that.
Absolutely.
Yes, so any other comments?
So I guess we're going to regroup before the 8th, right? At the working group?
Yep.
I think it's wise. I think we should have kind of a recap meeting where we can go over the comments and questions.
Yep.
And then talk about presentation modifications that need to be made for the select board.
Sure.
All right, motion to adjourn, anybody?
Oh, do we have to go over minutes?
Oh,
I say,
15 minutes, right?
Can I move?
once.
I'm making a motion. Move to approve the October 15th.
Yeah, we have to approve meeting minutes.
Oh geez, I'm jumping the gun, that's why.
I just stickler for details. Look at you.
So who's got the first motion, please?
I
See
motion.
Eric raising his hand.
Emily just made the motion. I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor? Jenny, you want a audio roll call vote?
Yes, and who seconded? I apologize.
Eric.
Eric, thank you.
Okay, Kate Cameron, yay.
Yay, Michael.
Mike Coleman,
yay.
Eric Affen, yay.
Angela Bender, yay.
Bob Wyden, yay.
Jenna, I don't know, I wasn't at the meeting. Can I vote on the minutes?
Sure can.
Mhm.
Again? Okay.
Yes.
Richard Hand, yay. Emily?
I yayed twice already.
Oh.
You good, Jenna?
And did I get Eric? Yep, I did. Okay, yep, I got everybody.
Okay. Motion passed. Okay, and now Emily.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Second by Richard Hand. All those in favor? Say yay.
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 Eric Affen, yay.
Thank you all.
Angela
Thanks, you
Bender.
guys.
Thank you, guys.
Come on.
Home run, guys, home run.
Thank you. It was wonderful.
Thank you guys so much. It was awesome.
Great
Okay.
presentation.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Right.